with, to, whatever, to people, to really having people engaged throughout. And now having people actually as PIs, co-Is, authors on papers, changing the research projects that you set out 2.5 years ago. You had a great idea, but once you start to talk to people, those ideas change pretty rapidly. So I've just got a few snippets. See if you can spot yourself if you come up. But I did ask a few people to sort of give me a few pictures of what's been going. And I'll tell you one thing that comes across all of these different activities. And this is a fantastic piece of work with AI Multiply. I'd like that on my wall, actually. I don't know who has got that on their wall, but what a fantastic pathway that was drawn there during this real big open experience. But the one thing that comes across in all of this engagement to me is that people are smiling, enjoying this, communicating, and really being part of a community. So I embrace you all for the work that you've been doing. So what does it really mean in reality? I mean, it's great, you know, we're involving patients in research and it sounds good, but, you know, we've got a lot more to do. And I think we're learning all the time about what this, you know, what it means and what the outcomes are. And we can see that, you know, this is really bridging a gap here. But I don't want to talk anymore. I'm going to bring this alive onto the stage. But the first thing I would really like to do is to show you what I think is an amazing video. If you haven't seen this, just sit back and enjoy it. And then we're going to bring it even more to life. So I'm just going to ask if we could put this film on and just sit back for 3 minutes. And then I'm going to bring a panel up. Thank you.
Well, I like learning things new. I like being part of a team. And I like knowing them helping, making a difference to people's lives in a way.
What I really want from this group today is for everyone to feel like they can be a part of the group and talk and have a voice.
DECODE is about people with learning disabilities and multiple long-term conditions. 2/3 of them with this population experience 2 or more multiple long-term conditions. And it's really difficult to diagnose in time. There's often delay and misdiagnosis. And the issue is that because of that, they often die much younger than general population. So that's the issue we want to address in DECODE.
PPIE is patients and public involvement and engagement. And PPIE is that community of people with learning disability and carers for our research being part of our group to shape up the research. Patients and public involvement is crucial.
Until recently, research was so separated from the groups that it was for, it remained on dusty shelves and the outcomes were hardly kind of impacted in the wider communities that they were meant to be serving.
Ethical research is always the way forward. That's how we find things out. And if you've been asked to join the research, it's because you've got something to give.
And I thought, yes, I'd love to join. And I come to every meeting.
There are lots of ways that we try to make the groups accessible. So we book taxis for people, we book accessible venues, we check people's dietary requirements. We try to make all the information really accessible and easy to understand by using easy read language with pictures. And we have a speech and language therapist and a learning disability nurse who attends all the groups to support people either one-to-one or in a small group and really break down the information for people.
We talk about it, whether that's easy to understand or was that a bit too much. And then we find a solution, what would make it actually better.
Probably seeing more like the barrier.
It's really important for people's voices to be heard and for people to be listened to. The project is about and for people with learning disabilities, listening to what people are saying and then being able to take that and feed it back to the research team.
So in a nutshell, we're taking really complex numerical data We're turning it into stories and we're communicating that to people with learning disabilities to help them to understand their health better.
My son's now 24 and I've been a parent carer since, well, the day he was born. So it's just good for somebody to actually acknowledge that we have some areas of expertise and opinions that could make a difference to the lives of other people.
What are your favourite things about being in the PPI group?
I actually like the other people, and I think that's got to be a real basis for it.
My favourite things would be getting a chance to help people learn what the research is about. Also good for myself, it will help build my confidence up.
Basically, don't worry about coming to DECODE because you have nice people like Sarah, Amy there, who will make you feel welcome.
To see this research, which has been so carefully planned and is so about all the participants, has been an absolute joy. It really has.
You gotta get up to get down, yeah. You gotta get down to get up.
Thank you, and I'm sure you just cannot not be moved and inspired by that video. And actually, I'm going to bring that alive. So we have Alex and Amy from DECODE. So I'd love you to come up here and join us. And we also have another colleague, Lizzie. And Lizzie is from AI Multiply, who's also going to come and join us. So Lizzie, so I don't mind where you sit. Please come up and make yourselves welcome. We do have a microphone too, so if you need it, I'm going to have a little chat with you. But in the meantime, just make yourself comfortable, everybody. I also did have I'm not sure it's come up. No. I did have another colleague who can't be here, John. And John Taylor is from Compute, but John is just an amazing patient. I met him about 8 months ago. There's several patients in the room that I've met, and we've been exchanging all sorts of things that, about our lives. But John sent me a message, and he's been online all the time this morning saying, how's it going? And I'm sorry I can't be there. So I just wanted to read this out on behalf of John and his dog Ellie, because Ellie features a lot in John's life. But good morning, everybody. I'm John Taylor. I'm an MLTC patient. I apologise for not being with you, but my mobility problems have flared up over the weekend. As a patient with an interest in medical research, I have a growing interest in artificial intelligence role in improving patient care, particularly in exploring new fields at previously unattainable speeds. I am, however, aware of the lack of constructive dialogue between AI researchers and the public in general, who in daily life have some suspicions about artificial intelligence's progress. Currently, I am a minor part, I don't believe that in the slightest, of the Compute programme, which is seeking to improve MLT knowledge and potential clusters. As a non-statistician, it's been difficult at times to keep up, but I'm getting there, and it helps me knowing that my input is valued and not tokenism. AI is part of the future in research in every field and holds out exciting possibilities, but ethical considerations must be considered and accountability built into the system. Thank you for listening. He's even sent me articles this morning from the ERS where they're discussing AI and said, have you read this, Mon? So John is with us, even if he's not here this morning. So what does it feel like to be in that film? I think I might, well, maybe. Can I get to you, Alex? What did you feel about making film?
Yeah, it was really, really exciting. Starring, basically getting at the taxi. Yeah, I think it would take about 3 times, didn't it, Sarah?
Well, it's a very, very professional film, so I think you've done absolutely amazing to make that film. You've got a little note there as well.
Yeah. Okay, so my name's Alix and I'm a part of the patient involvement group. I liked being, I liked being very much in a group. This was my first time that I'd done something like that. I enjoyed going to the patient involvement meetings. I've enjoyed being in a group with people that I know, also meeting some new people.
And that's great. And all those things we've picked up, haven't we? And you've got your whole party of team here supporting you. Fantastic. 10 people from DECODE and other patients, and it's good to see other members that were on the film. I can see you there. So over to you, Amy. What did you think about making that, and what do you think the legacy of that film might be actually?
Yeah, so I think you can see from kind of the smiling faces of our team just how much it meant and how personal it was to everyone. There was a lot of people who put a lot of hard work into that video who didn't feature in it. So thank you to everyone who was part of that. And I know speaking on camera isn't easy at all. It's quite difficult, isn't it? And like Alex said, we did a few takes of a few things. But yeah, I'm just really proud of that clip, and watching it back today was just really positive. And yeah, I just felt so proud that we've kind of left that legacy. And it just shows how much being in the groups meant to everyone. And you can access the video on YouTube if you want to watch it again.
Right, well, we'll come back to you, but I want to actually now, if that's okay, to bring you in, Lizzie. Would you like to tell us a little bit about you and the project you're involved? And yeah,
Sure.
yep.
Hi, everyone. I am a PhD student with AI Multiply in my second year. And this was my first experience working with PPIE or participatory research, and it was overall really positive. So I'm still working with a group of people with lived experience throughout my PhD, and they've kind of shaped my project and what I look at and kind of how we build algorithms.
And what did you think when you first were asked to consider working with patients as it not being something that you've been used to doing? How did you feel about it?
I was very excited, but maybe also a little hesitant, not knowing kind of what was coming. And also, there's so much literature out there. There's so much in many different directions that it can take you in. But I think overall my experience has been a really positive one. I've had the pleasure of working with very different PPIE groups, one online and then one based in person in Tower Hamlets, and kind of the diversity of people's experiences and the kind of richness that they bring has been really overwhelming, but in a very positive way.
Thank you. And going back to you, Alex, I mean, celebration is great, but what have you come through to get to the point where you are really? I'll ask you that first, Amy, perhaps. Where, coming through the journey to where you are, can you tell me anything about the steps in the journey that you've learned?
Yeah, so running and hosting PPI groups was a new thing to me and my colleague Sarah, who's a learning disability nurse. And we run 4 different groups in total. So we've got 2 for adults with learning disabilities and 2 for carers, family carers and paid carers. So we learned a lot in terms of the dynamics of setting up, running groups, taking into account different people's preferences in terms of did they want online, the frequency that people like to meet, the time of day that people like to meet. We had sort of different challenges in terms of payment and how that might impact on people's benefits or not. So lots of things that we had to overcome. Things in the video that I mentioned, things like transport. So that was quite a barrier for us at the start. People weren't able to book and pay for transport themselves. That back because that was quite a large expense. So we managed to get a pre-bookable taxi service that we just pay up front, which helped a lot of our members be able to come to the group. But it's been a really good learning experience, and we've joined lots of different groups and been supported by AIM throughout. So we've had lots of support along the way and just kind of learned as we've gone through.
And thank you for that, because actually the practicalities are difficult, aren't they? I mean, a lot of people that we want to engage in PPIE work are have this issue about being paid benefits. It's a difficult system, but you've been able to navigate that. I think you found some solutions in your project
as best as we can. Yeah.
Well, keep them to yourself. But anyhow, let's go back to you, Alex. What have you found most enjoyable about the project? What have you found most enjoyable?
we've done a video called The Story of Maria. And what I've done is I've put my voice to it. And I've also learned about the intelligence. Am I right? Yeah, sorry, artificial intelligence of our group, in our group, which is really, really interesting for me to learn.
Yeah. So do you want me to just give a bit of context about the story of Maria? Yeah. So the story of Maria is an animation that we're making to explain some of the findings and the patterns in our research. And Alix has voiced that story, and it's kind of being produced currently at the moment. So we haven't got anything to show you, but yeah, we're hoping that we can use the story that we've developed with our patients, and they've gone through many iterations and versions of the script. We're hoping that we can use that structure to show different health conditions and how they kind of pan out and what people might be able to do to prevent themselves getting different conditions in the future.
So we've got two things in this project, and obviously we've got multiple things, but if we think about, we've got the multiple long-term conditions, which is one thing, but AI is a difficult concept for anybody. I'm looking now back to you, Lizzie, with your engagement. I mean, how has your experience been trying to articulate this and I think it's helpful for us as researchers to be able to do this to the general public, because it helps us in our own work. But I wonder how is there anything that you can share with us of trying to explain what it means?
Sure. I'm not sure I've done a particularly good job, because I think it is a very complex subject, and I think the work that you guys have done is amazing, honestly, trying to explain complex things in a way that is creative and very accessible, because I think there's so much technical language around artificial intelligence that it can be very difficult, even kind of somebody who is maybe building or creating these AI tools. It's also hard to understand or to even read an academic paper. So we've also been using some art and creative methods to be able to try and break these concepts down and make them perhaps more fun as well. But I think really it's a bit of a black hole in research. There's not that many resources online to kind of explain artificial intelligence in a simple way without it getting very technical. I think really, if we want to make sure we want to involve a wider range of people as possible in AI research, we do really need to make sure we come up with kind of more fun, interesting, engaging ways to explain these concepts. And something I hope to do kind of moving forward in future research.
Fantastic. And I'm sure there's a lot of lessons to be learned from our team here in DECODE. I mean, is there anything you'd like to say in there? I know you use all sorts of visuals, and do you want to share anything?
Yeah, so some of the ways that we've been trying to break down this really complex topic is through using different pictures, activities. We've used Playmobil, for example, and talked about sorting it into groups, and this has helped us talk to people about different clusters, trajectories, patterns, and we've kind of tried to use physical objects to help people learn a little bit more about artificial intelligence. We've had to think quite carefully, because artificial intelligence as a subject is quite large. We've had to think kind of carefully about how we drill it down to how this relates to health and what we're doing in the DECODE project. But we produce a lot of easy read information, so that's short sentences with pictures. And we've had a go at some of the online AI kind of games and tools that you can play about with as well.
And if there's anyone from the floor that'd like to share their experience, would like to raise their hand, very happy for anyone to contribute to this discussion for the next 5 minutes or so. I know, Lizzie, that you've got something quite interesting about presenting your research to lay members of your community. How did that feel when you were as a junior researcher standing up and trying to explain to...
Maybe we should ask one of the PPIE members. But so I think this is referring to we had some early career researcher drop-in sessions as part of AI Multiply. And I think Susan, actually, who's standing up at the back there, will have heard me talk a lot at her. Yeah, so this is where any early career researcher across AI Multiply could sign up to a session with the PPIE group. and kind of talk about their research, get feedback, float an idea, kind of get help with wording, really anything at all. And it was also just to create a space where it was meant to be very informal and just a conversation between people with lived experience and researchers. And that was, I think, has been very successful as a way of trying to bridge the gap between, or to kind of really embed PPIE in people's research at a very early stage. I think it's always slightly terrifying going to talk to a group of people, for me personally. But our PPIE group, as I'm sure every group, is so welcoming, very lovely, always has lots of questions to ask. So I think it's always a good thing as a researcher to be able to explain your research in lots of different ways, that people can understand. Because then it means that you really also understand your own research.
Well, I was going to ask you that question because, I mean, a lot of this is no different than actually suddenly being put here with a room of journalists. I mean, you have to translate research. And so from an early point of your career to be thinking about how you translate your research, what you're doing into terms outside of people that don't, aren't familiar is really good experience for you. So
Definitely.
Yeah. So is there any questions or any comments from the floor? Spellbound. Well, I'd just like to say there's a couple of things. If there's one little nugget you'd like to take away from you would like to share with people about what you personally have learned through the process, I wonder if you could share with us.
So I think for me personally, and I think all our team will agree that we're supporting people who are not necessarily involved in research quite often for lots of different reasons and lots of different maybe perceived barriers. But I think what we've learned is that people with learning disabilities can and do want to be involved in research if they're given the right support. So DECODE has been really lucky that we've been able to have a speech and language therapist and a learning disability nurse on the project, which is really good. And they've had that kind of inclusive thinking. But that's really meant that we've been able to help people to share their voice who maybe haven't been asked before. And we've kind of had some creative thoughts about how people might want to do that. And would you like to add, Alex? Do you think?
No, I know. I think you're going in the right way, totally.
And how would you encourage somebody else, Alex, to get involved in the group? If they said to you, "What are you doing, Alex? What's this DECODE?" How would you get somebody to get involved?
Yeah, I would say just go to DECODE website that's on the leaflets, and basically, or contact Sarah or Amy, and basically say, look, come along to DECODE on a Tuesday. You get taxis to the meetings. You get lovely teas and coffees at the meetings.
Always works.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you get paid. Yeah. Because like I said to the people where I live, just come along. Yeah.
Fantastic. I bet you're a fantastic ambassador. I'd love you on my team, Alex.
That's fine. Yeah.
And Lizzie,
I would say that I think as someone who's kind of very early on in my research, that PPIE should be encouraged at university in even the most quantitative subjects like computer science. I think it's not really on the agenda much, and it's not something you learn about in kind of more in the more quantitative sciences. And I think that's a shame because I think everything could kind of benefit more from that.
Lovely. Well, look, thank you so much, my wonderful panel. Thank you for sharing. I did make you edit the video, didn't I? But so you've done some work behind the scenes, and that was only because it was long. So thank you to DECODE, and thank you to everybody. And please, engage with each other over the next few days. This is one of the most important things that we do as a community, make sure our research is meaningful. And I know many of you have gone and ducked and dived and changed your direction because you've listened to people. So we don't do enough of this sometimes. So let's keep listening. So thank you very much. Give our little team a round of applause.